Okay, let's jump right in. If you look around at modern societies today, it's pretty obvious that something fundamentally isn't working, right? We feel it in our communities, we see it in the news, everywhere. So in this explainer, we're going to explore a genuinely fascinating third-way economic framework. This is drawn from Daesun Thought, and it specifically aims to cure some of the most deep-seated issues of our modern world. We are going to unpack exactly how the core principles of Haewon Sangsaeng, which translates to the resolution of grievances and mutual coexistence, can actually harmonize our deeply fractured economic ideologies. Let's kick things off with this incredibly powerful quote straight from the source text. Modern people living under capitalism set aside their ideals, suffer wounds to their human dignity, endure each day of frustrated dreams, and fail to realize any active public good. Wow. I mean, it perfectly captures that visceral daily pain that so many people are facing right now. We so often talk about the economy using these sterile numbers, right? GDP growth, stock charts, inflation rates. But this reminds us that at the absolute center of it all is the human experience. And right now, that experience feels heavily characterized by frustrated dreams and wounds to our human dignity, rather than actually realizing any active public good. And when we look at our two dominant modern ideologies side by side, a really stark contrast emerges. On one hand, we've got capitalism. Now, while it's highly productive, the text points out that it's lost its original goal of expanding the public good, and instead it's led to a severe maximization of the wealth gap. On the other hand, we have communism. This attempted to solve that very inequality, but ultimately became mired in stagnant growth. So we're essentially looking at two systems that have both hit their fundamental ideological limits. So what does this actually mean for us? Well, because both of these dominant systems have totally lost sight of that original purpose, expanding the public good, the source argues that we've arrived at a full-blown global crisis of economic ideology. It's kind of like a lose-lose scenario that we all feel in our daily lives. Neither extreme is providing a reliable foundation for genuine human flourishing or for long-term social stability. So, Chapter 1, basically, the utilitarianism trap. To understand exactly how we fix this crisis, we first have to look at the trap of traditional utilitarianism, which actually serves as the philosophical foundation for a lot of these failing systems. We've all heard this one before. Utilitarianism, the pursuit of the greatest happiness for the greatest number. It sounds incredibly logical, doesn't it? Aiming for the absolute most happiness for the largest amount of people. In fact, it formed the basis of major political and economic decisions throughout the modern era. But as the source text reveals, the very math that makes utilitarianism seem so incredibly logical actually hides a pretty devastating structural flaw. And here is that exact structural flaw. Whenever you mathematically favor the majority, you inevitably, literally by definition, sacrifice a minority. When you're the one left behind by the system's math, that harm breeds what the text calls grievance, or in the original terminology, won. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that this isn't just some emotional byproduct. It is a profound systemic failure. You're basically building a society by actively creating a disenfranchised underclass. The source material uses this profound principle from the Jungyung to show the real-world consequences of that flaw. It says if even one person harbors a grievance, the energy of heaven and earth is blocked. Just think about that for a second. Now, sure, that might sound a bit mystical at first glance, but let's ground it in practical economics. Blocked energy looks exactly like societal gridlock. It looks like labor strikes, economic depressions, extreme political polarization. Essentially, when a marginalized group harbors grievance and just completely stops participating, the entire economic engine stalls out. Okay, so how do we fix it? The crucial takeaway here is that to unblock the system, we desperately need Haewon. Haewon is the deliberate act of resolving those grievances. And how is this actually achieved? By completely flipping traditional utilitarianism on its head. So instead of the majority ruling at the expense of the minority, Haewon demands an ethics of care where the majority prioritizes the minority first. Which brings us to our next major concept, the third way, or harmonization-oriented utilitarianism. This is the core solution presented in Daesun Thought. It's the new paradigm, this third way, that totally steps outside the traditional rigid bounds of capitalism and communism. When you actually put Haewon into practice, meaning that active resolution of grievance through real care, you achieve Sangsaeng. Basically, if Haewon is the action, Sangsaeng is the result. It translates to this incredibly powerful state of mutual coexistence. You aren't just tolerating one another, you are actively creating a dynamic, cyclic structure where the well-being of one group is directly and deeply tied to the well-being of the other.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking that an ethics of care sounds a lot like a total rejection of modern markets. But surprisingly, it's not. This philosophy actually fully embraces market efficiency. Why? Well, because if no one harbors grievance, there are no blockages. Resources, labor, and capital just flow seamlessly. In this view, efficiency isn't the enemy of the public good at all. Actually, when it's unblocked by mutual coexistence, efficiency becomes the very engine that revives and sustains the public good.
So, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, in a harmonization-oriented view, production and distribution become completely aligned. You care for the minority, and you give first. Because the economy is basically a giant circulatory system, the wealth and resources that you invest into the community to care for others ultimately cycle right back to the producers. The whole system just feeds itself through continuous healthy circulation rather than stagnant hoarding. In this harmonized view, the interests of the majority and the minority aren't competing against each other anymore. They are entirely one and the same, which leads us to this beautifully simple economic rule from the text. For me to prosper, I need only give first. Think about how radical that is. It fundamentally shifts the entire starting line of economic participation from extraction to contribution. And what's truly amazing about this mutual coexistence mindset is how it manages to harmonize competing political theories. The source notes that it actually embraces the individual freedom championed by libertarianism, the structural agreements of social contractarianism, and the shared collective values of communitarianism, all at once. It bridges all these gaps because it relies on a profound human ideal, the belief that, even if other people don't immediately recognize your sincerity and your contribution, heaven will know. By harmonizing profound spiritual ethics with practical economic circulation, Haewon Sangsaeng offers a direct, incredibly stabilizing alternative to our modern crises. It tackles the massive wealth gaps, the economic stagnation, and honestly, that tragic loss of human self-respect we talked about at the very beginning of this explainer. It proves, once and for all, that morality and market efficiency do not have to be enemies. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on regarding your own role in the economy. If the key to unblocking the energy of our society is prioritizing care, how can you apply this mutual coexistence perspective, this idea that to prosper you need only give first, to your own life and work today? It's a real game changer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and until next time, keep exploring.